My name is Brenna Corner, and I'm the director for Seattle Opera's Don Giovanni. There's something I think that is quite extraordinary about film that actually lends itself beautifully to Don Giovanni, and that is that Don Giovanni, at its core, is really a story about sort of the psychology of these characters and what each of them is going through because of the actions of this one man. And Don Giovanni is a story about the women around Don Giovanni and the men, but it is not actually a story about him. He doesn't change. He is the same man at the beginning of the piece as he is at the end. And we have to have hope. We have to have this glimmer of hope that he might change. Otherwise, when we get to the end with the statue actually comes across as a bit of an idiot, because you're like, well, of course he's not going to change. We've known he's wasn't going to change since the beginning of the show. Why are you here asking him? So it's actually there's this thing that's actually important, which is that we believe he might. So there has to be this little shred of redemption and hope in him, but he doesn't change through the whole piece, which to me means that the piece itself has to be about the other members of the story. I think Dona Elvira is the crux of the opera. For me, I think she's one of the most interesting people in the opera, because I think the thing is, particularly with her, is she is a powerful woman. She's powerful and she is strong and she is right. None of what she is saying is wrong. And so I think the wonderful thing about Elvira is that her strength also lies in how much she truly loves him. And her journey then is about the cost of that love, the realization that he will never be able to participate. And then the understanding that even if that's true, and even with the realization that she will never be with him, that she still wants him to be okay. And I think that's really important for us to understand, particularly when we go into that final scene when she shows up. She's not begging him to be with her. She's just begging him to be better, because she loves him that much that it is important for her to fight for him to just be a better human. With the understanding that she will never be with him, she's not going to be with him. He is not a healthy choice, but that she wants him to be better. And I think that journey from this strong, hurt, powerful woman who shows up at the beginning to this sort of this woman who is there for him, not for herself. I think that's the sort of important journey that Elvira goes on. Anna, on the other hand, I mean, she's a fascinating character, because we never actually get to meet Anna before the beginning of her life-changing event, right? So, and no matter how you sort of play it out, something happens in the room off stage before she comes on stage. I fervently believe that we have to, that in this modern day, in this modern world, we can no longer put women on stage who are lying about assault, because we are currently fighting that in our culture. We have to just believe the women. That's where we are as a culture. And so for me, that's also where we need to be with this piece. So when Anna says to Octavio the story of what happened to her, to me, that is exactly what happened to her. So the first time we meet Anna, she's already changed from the woman she was beforehand. So she's fascinating because you never get to see what she was before. All you get to see is how far she goes for vengeance. And I think that, for me, that's the thing about Anna, is she is not, none of these women are weak. She is not weak. She is really mad. And she is really hurt. And she is really sad because, quite frankly, she lost her dad, 3 hours ago. Zillia is also a super interesting character. her first aria is always troublesome. It's a prickly little pear, that one. I think the thing with Zerlina is, I think she's young, and yes, everybody makes some life choice when they're young that maybe they just get out of, or maybe they don't get out of, but where you're like, that was maybe not such a great choice, or whew, thank heavens I made it out of that life choice. And I think that's what happens during La Chirarem. I mean, I think she agrees to go with him, but only just. And it's more this sort of, she gets swept up in the idea of what her life could be like. So she's not a bad character. And I don't think in any way that she doesn't love Mazzetto. I mean, she loves Mazzetto dearly. She has a moment of weakness that almost causes her entire life to fall apart. And I think when she comes to Mazzetto at the end of Act 1 and she sings Batti Batti, which is beat me, she's come all the way to find him again, to get their life better, to get their life back, to apologize to him, and he won't listen. So like many young people, she gets really frustrated, and I think she gets really angry with him. And she goes, okay, what do you need? Do you need to beat me? Is that what you need to do to make you feel better? Is that what will help? Is that what you need? So to me, she is actually sort of this incredible sort of firecracker of a woman. She's young and she's full of life, and full of love and full of impatience. Giovanni, for me, is the epitome of privilege. He is a young man who has been educated in a world where he has no consequences. I don't actually necessarily think he's a bad guy. I don't think he's a villain. He's not something from with a mustache he's going to twirl. He's not that guy. He's a young man who has never had to deal with consequence. And so suddenly, on one day, he's having to deal with all these consequences. The consequence of what he did to Anna, which is he killed the Commendatore. The consequence of Elvira coming back. The consequence of Elvira coming back is that he can't get with Selina. It just keeps going and going and going. He suddenly, in one day, is faced with all of these consequences. And that is only something, that's only really something that's important to someone who's never had to deal with consequences, who's always been able to sort of sidle out of it or sneak away or change the conversation or sacrifice someone else or whatever. Now, that doesn't forgive his actions, that doesn't condone his actions, it doesn't change anything, except to me, it makes us believe that at the end he might repent. He might say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. All the characters, Leporello, Mazzetto, all of them are so affected by this man. All the people that exist in his orbit are in one way or another hurt by him. For me, the way we make this piece matter for a modern world is that we talk about the abuse that's happened on the victims and how they cope with it. Because Mozart and Da Ponte are extraordinary. They wrote humans unlike almost anybody else. They wrote the strengths and the weaknesses and the failings, and all of that exists in all of these characters. I think Giovanni is an incredibly important story for us to tell for several reasons, but one for sure is that for years, this piece has been in the operatic canon. For years, we've thought about these characters in very specific ways, and we've told these stories in what we sort of now might consider very traditional ways. But we as a culture and as a society are changing, and we demand that the art and the stories that we share change with us. Now, Mozart and Da Ponte were extraordinary at what they did and at creating characters who are so fully realized humans, so fully realized, like fully 3D humans, that you can actually find all manner of characteristics within them. So for me, the reason to tell Giovanni these days is to explore the characters in different ways, and to, particularly with the women, to tell their stories in perhaps a more aware mindset.